You're listening to the Connecticut Real Estate Edge podcast, your source for tips and tricks on building wealth through real estate in Connecticut. You will get the best techniques from leading local experts in real estate and lending. Now, here's your host, Robert Weinberg.
Welcome to another edition of Connecticut Real Estate Edge. Have a super special guest on today. I've been trying to get him on the show for a while. Finally, we have with us Mr. Steve Gordon. Steve, welcome to the show, my friend.
Rob, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Sorry I've been so difficult. We've been super busy. I'm down here in South, actually not South anymore, but Northeast Florida, just moved. And we have so many projects going on. And so I keep saying yes, and then I kept pushing it back. But I'm so thrilled to be able to be here with you and spend some time.
Man.
We've been friends for a long time.
So long. We'll talk about that. But the reason I wanted to bring Steve on the show is because we all know in today's market, negotiation is make it or break it. The real estate market right now is the hottest it's been. There's the most competition I think we've seen in recent history in the industry in general. So whether you're a buyer, a seller, or an investor, or anywhere in between, you're going to get a lot out of today's episode. Steve is an expert negotiator. He actually wrote the book on it. He's a published author with a recent book called Negotiation Mastery for Real Estate Investors and Negotiation Mastery for Real Estate Agents. So great information there. A real estate agent himself with a lot of experience under his belt there with Epic Realty, and recently started building homes himself through White Sand Construction. And I've seen some of the properties that Steve's building. Unbelievable luxury by anyone's imagination. A 10 property, a perfect 10, right? So beachfront, just all the amenities, and Steve can talk a little about that. But another big thing that Steve brings to the table is he's actually a featured real estate agent on the television show The Negotiators. So that's a huge thing too, because we all know how much vetting goes into getting into those real estate shows, and Steve's done it. So he's a wealth of knowledge, and that's why I wanted to bring him on. But before we get to the negotiation stuff, I want to let everyone know about me and Steve's relationship, because we're not just business partners or anything here. We actually have known each other for over 20 years. Steve was, I think by any accounts, like my first mentor in business. So we were in network marketing. I was, cutting my teeth in sales and in the networking industry. And Steve took me under his wing when I was like 17, 18 years old and showed me the ropes of sales, showed me the ropes of networking, building teams, leadership. He's really the foundation of that. So it's funny how in the end, we both ended up in real estate, because back then we really weren't. But, I want to kind of kick off talking a little about our relationship, our background, and then what really brings you, Steve, to become a master negotiator, not only in real estate, but in your background in business.
Well, first of all, kudos to you. You were superstar out of the gate. I mean, even at 18 years old, anybody who knew you knew that you were going places. And so it was easy to work with you. And I feel very fortunate that we met each other. I mean, you probably forget, but you actually came to visit us, my wife and I, when we lived in Hawaii for a while.
Yeah.
We've had a depth and breadth of longevity in our friendship and our relationship. So it's awesome to be here again, and so thank you. And negotiating it's everything. I wrote the book. I just want to go back to the book for a second. And as I was writing it, I knew I wanted to write it with a slant towards real estate investors and home buyers, and for that matter, sellers too. But really, everybody negotiates, right? I mean, we negotiate all day. You negotiated to try to get me on this show at the right time. We negotiate with our spouse. Where do you want to go for dinner? What do you want to do? Whatever it is, we're negotiating all day. And so, it's really important to understand that the concepts in the book are just concepts from everyday life, and the better that we are in terms of negotiating, the happier I think we're going to be. But negotiating doesn't always mean winning every time, and we'll talk more about that I'm sure as we get down into the nitty gritty of this interview.
So you've been in sales a long time, Steve, outside of real estate. Just talk about like your networking and that, because I think that gives you a big angle that a lot of people in real estate don't have.
So technically, I'm a geek. My degree is in computer science, electrical engineering, and when I got out of school, I realized within about 90 days of programming, sitting in this little cubicle, that that wasn't who I am, and that I like to be out and seeing people and talking to people. And the husband and wife that owned the small company that I worked for, they said, "We really like you. We'd love for you to stay on with our company, but we think that you're not really, we know you're not happy as a programmer. We would love for you to be a salesperson. You understand what the product does, but we don't have any money to pay you." So great, how does that work? So they said, "Well, we want to put you on a full commission." And I said, "Well, here I am, by the way, right out of college, just a couple of months. I come from the school of parenting where my dad said when I came home from college, 'Nice to have you home. Where are you going to live? What are you doing for a living? Like, you're not coming here and we're not going to just coddle you. You got to." So I was like moved into this little apartment that somebody created over their garage, and I'm out there working, and I got to pay rent and the bills, and these guys tell me you can't we can't pay you. So I guess this is my first negotiation in the real world. I said, "So well, how about this? Why don't you keep me on full salary for 30 days, then 2/3 salary, 1/3 commission for 60 days, the next 30 days, then 1/3 salary, and then I'll go 100% commission after 90 days. So I have a little bit of wind down time." And they thought about it pretty quickly and they said, "Sure, okay." And I took all the money that I had saved as a kid from like paper routes and shoveling snow up in the Northeast and all the things I could do to make some money. And I had been reading some books by a guy named Tom Hopkins, who has since gone and gotten a little bit older, but at this point, Tom was younger. And when I met with Tom, I remember saying to him, I think to myself, I need to get out there and I need to learn how to sell. And so we had this 3-day boot camp, and I put all my money together. I got on an airplane. I flew out to LA, and I remember at the very beginning, they said, "We're going to recognize the person who's the number one in the class." It was a 3-day class. We had all these exams and quizzes and tests in the middle. And there were some pretty heavy hitters at that point. I remember being in a room with about 1,100 people, and many of them were making probably $1 million a year or more in real estate, a lot of them. And I said, "I'm going to take first place and I'm going to win this thing." And when everybody else went out and had a good time at night, I went back to my hotel room and I studied and I studied and I studied. And I actually ended up, I don't know if I went tied with some other people, but I did finish with a straight 100% on all the exams, and was invited to come back as a proctor. And that was really the beginning of learning how to sell and understand people, because really selling is all about negotiating. It's give and take. And so to be a proficient salesperson, to be a great salesperson, and again, just like negotiating, selling, we do it all the time. I tell my wife she's the best salesperson I've ever met who's not trained as a salesperson, because she just is the best closer without knowing she's closing. And it's just it's a gift. But anyway, we're as salespeople, we're negotiating all the time. It's give and take. And the best salespeople are those who listen. Someone once told me that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and when you're involved in business, you got to use them in that ratio. You got to listen, listen, listen. And I think that the thing about negotiating is to take the time to listen to what the other side is saying, because I guarantee you 1,000% of the time, the other side will tell you exactly what it is they need to get the deal closed. It might be in real, well, we'll talk about things in real estate later.
Well, that's the perfect segue, because I wanted to ask you what you see as the most common mistakes that first time home buyers or real estate investors are making. So when they're evaluating a deal, they're going in, you know, I'm sure you see, being a real estate investor, being a realtor, dealing with all this properties and building, you are involved in a lot of these negotiations, and I'm sure you see the same mistakes, especially by the younger group, or not even younger, but the more novice group, right? What are
Yeah,
they doing that when it comes to negotiation you see over and over, you're like, no, that's not right, they should be doing it different?
a couple things. Um, Whether you're buying your first home or you're investing in property, two things I would tell everybody. Number one, don't get emotionally involved. It's a transaction. It's just business. When you are emotionally involved, you will overpay. Now, I'm not going to tell you, like the house that my wife and I just purchased for ourselves, we walked in, we looked at each other. She goes, "Oh my God, I love it. This is like the dream house." And I just said to the other agent, I thought the price was really fair to begin with. And I said to the other agent, you know what? It's going on the market in 2 days. I'll give you full price, no contingencies. I mean, we'll do an inspection, but no financial
Financing.
contingencies, no financing contingency. And but you got to take it off the market. So essentially, even though it wasn't necessarily a cash deal, when you don't have a financing contingency, it goes down as a cash deal because you're saying, look, I'm going to make it up one way or the other. So there was a situation where it was an emotional decision, but this wasn't an investment, and it's a house that I don't think we're going to sell. I hope for a very long time, if not ever. I think this could be our last home. We've moved 15 times in the last 12 years, and I think it's time for us to put some roots down. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and this really goes for both categories as well, is you got to pick a number and you stick to it. So if you're looking at a house that's listed for 650 and you know that your top number is 600, and they come back and they're like, our best and final is 625, and you can't do it, walk. There will be another house. There will be another investment property. And for investors, that 25 grand could be the difference between your profit and your loss.
Mm-hmm.
So, you start adding all your other costs in there. As an investor, you've got, typically if you're taking hard money, you're paying, an average
Oh
10 to
yeah.
15%.
Well, we always say in my business, know your numbers. So whether it's your comfortable payment, your comfortable purchase price, as an investor, how much rental income's coming in versus the mortgage, like know these numbers, don't wing it. And I think that's whether you're a first time buyer, real estate investor, move up buyer, whatever, know these numbers. Because if you don't, you're going to end up in an emotional decision for sure. And that's going to end up almost every time being the wrong decision, right?
There's no question that it's going to not only be the wrong decision, but it could really put you in a financial hurt. I mean, if you're a two-income family, one of you loses your income, the company closes, you lose your job, who knows what, and you're just kind of scraping by. You don't want to be in a position where you overstretched, and now all of a sudden you can't make those payments and you can't sleep at night and you're worried about losing your home, and what are you going to do? It's not a good place to be. So you need to know your numbers, as you said. And when I work with clients, home buyers, I also work with investors. We sit down and we talk about numbers, and we're very candid. And I tell people, look, I need to really have an open, honest conversation with you so that I can help you get the best price and the best deal for your home, the property you're purchasing, and one that you can live with.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Steve. When it comes to market research, how much market research should people be doing before they get into negotiation? How important is that? Or should, as a buyer, they shouldn't care and just leave it to their professionals? I mean, what do you think as far as that goes?
At the end of the day, it's always your decision, right? Like I can tell you and guide you, but it's your money. And that's what I also tell people. I go, look, this is your money. So what we do is I'm going to listen to you. I work for you. However, if you want me to, I'm going to guide you with my best professional opinion. And that market research for an investor is looking around at similar properties. How much rent are they garnering? What percentage of the time are they rented if it's short-term rental? I'm a very big fan of short-term rentals versus long-term rentals. Same house that gets $3,000 a month can get $300 a night. triple the money. It's a little more
And
work.
I
And
know
it's
you
a
have
whole
experience yourself renting out
yes.
properties on short-term Airbnb and whatnot. So
Yeah, we love
another
that.
another great thing you bring to the table with value there. So the market, I mean, as far as the market research, should you use your realtor to help with that, or are there resources you should go online and look at?
I think that it's both, right? Because yes, I can bring you my professional expertise, but at the end of the day, again, it's your money. You need to do your homework too. And so we can look at things together. I'm going to bring you, when you call me up, I'm going to bring you a home valuation. I'm going to look at properties in the area. I'm going to bring you rentals in the area. I'm going to show you everything. I'm going to go through and find out from other realtors what percentage of the time are these homes being rented and at what average price. So yes, count on a professional. Just like I wouldn't go into surgery and try to give
Right. Well,
myself
yeah.
surgery. Right,
Trust but verify, I think is
right, of course,
I'm
because
with you.
ultimately it's your money.
And on my end, like I use tools like HomeBot that show people what's going on in the market on a very basic level. So they know, hey, this is a super competitive area you're looking in, or no, it's not as competitive. So that's there. Now, we're seeing a lot of multiple offer scenarios nowadays. I think at least up in the Northeast, it's like every single deal is multiple offers. So talking to our first time buyers out there that are striking out, what are some effective strategies they can use or ways that they can use multiple offers to their advantage?
Well, so a lot of times you got to be creative. So as an agent, right? I'll give you a great example. It's in the book. I'll try to keep time tight because I know we're on a tight time constraint. Um, a very good friend of ours who lived down in South Florida saw a house up here in St. Augustine on the water that they wanted, and it was very well priced, but it needed a ton of work. And there were 12 offers at the same time. And they looked at me and they go, "We want this house." And I said, "Okay, what's our best number?" And they said, "Here's the number, give it to them, and that's it." Well, I don't know what the other 11 are negotiating. So I spent 6 hours on the phone with the other agent going back and forth. And it turned out that one of the things is that because the house needed a lot of work, it actually fell through the prior deal.
Okay.
And it fell through because there were problems with the roof. Now, my buyer, I said, "Well, will you give me the last person's inspection report?" They said, "Yes." I said, "Then we're willing to waive inspection if we move forward." So that was another thing. It became a cash deal. I put them in touch with, somebody I knew down here in Florida, and who helped them with a private loan. And so I knew it was a friend of a friend who had some money they were looking to just offload
Okay.
quickly. And so I put them together. I knew that the deal would go through. So I said, "Make it cash, no contingencies." And I went back to the other agent. And so then the other thing is they wanted a quick close because they've been burned 1 or 2 times already. I said, "We can do it in 10 days. We're going to do an inspection, but it's no inspection contingency. It's really, they wanted to just make sure the other report was fine." So I had to get very creative with the buyer's permission. And I started over 6 hours to understand what the pain was and why they were back on the market again, and what
And
it
I've
was going to.
seen this happen time and time again. And one of the things is like your team. Who do you have working with you as a buyer, as an investor? The 6 hours you spent is time that a lot of novice or inexperienced realtors wouldn't spend, and that buyer wouldn't get the property. So I go back to setting up that wealth team, making sure you vet the people you're working with. This is proof positive why that's so important, because what I'm hearing you say is in a multiple negotiation situation, a multiple offer scenario that's so common, there is a meal ticket of what the seller is looking for, and it's usually not the highest price. There's something else there. Is your real estate professional though willing to do that research, to make the calls, do the Googling, do what needs to find out what is their meal ticket? Because I had an offer recently accepted that was like 10,000 lower, but it was a quick close, and that's what was most important to the seller, right?
I just look quickly again. So yes, you're absolutely right. And going back to having your team in place, it's really important that when you're dealing with someone who's negotiating for you, in my case, I told my buyers, "We know the contractors. I'll put you in touch with the people who build our houses. We know this person. We know that one. They had a problem with a tile person. I got our tile person to go over there and remedy it for less money." Right? I mean, it made a big difference because our experience made them feel more comfortable making that decision. So all of that is critically important. And
now, what about repairs? Because you were just talking about a tile person. So I'm thinking there's always like inspections happen, appraisals happen. There's repairs. There's this that has to get done. That it's a lot of pushback and stuff. How do you negotiate? So let's talk about, to wrap up here, some advanced strategies or tactics to negotiate when it comes to repairs or improvements, specifically after an inspection.
Well, a couple of things. No, so let's go back to not this house, right? But another house. So often, I'll just tell my client, look, let's just get the deal, lock it up first, right? You get your name and their name on the contract. We have the inspection period.
Yep.
Let's see what the inspection pulls up. We can always renegotiate. Sometimes the seller's like, I'm not renegotiating. Sometimes you have to walk away. Other times you might say, well, okay, rather than renegotiate, maybe you need a little more time to sell your house. So we ask for 45 days or 60 days instead of 30. Maybe we ask the seller to put in a concession to buy down a little bit lower on the mortgage, right?
Yep.
Because in reality, a $10,000 buy down on a mortgage over the 30 years is really worth a lot more than the $10,000.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
people don't understand that,
Yep.
right? And so the seller's like, I'm getting a bargain. I'm only have to pay $10,000 over for $25,000 in repairs. So it's win-win. At the end of the day, I always, you just got to ask questions. And I go back to the other agent and I go, what do we need to do to make this work? How do we get this closed?
But what I'm hearing, Steve, is, again, it's the team. It's not the home buyer or investor on the phone doing this. It's the team they hired. It's you. It's whoever their real estate pro is. So I think when it comes to negotiation as a home buyer, it's trust but verify, and have your team in place, and make sure that your team knows what they're doing. Make sure you've got the mortgage lender that knows exactly what's going on with the finances, the actual real estate agent that has that handle on the local market and can do that market research and make you feel comfortable. And I think that's more important than reading 20 books on negotiating, right, Steve?
And another thing too, Rob, is you got to like that person. You got to feel comfortable. If you want to work with me, but for some reason you don't feel like it gels, don't work with me.
I always tell people, talk to a couple, see who you mesh best with, interview. Don't just go with the first one. No one's saying I'm the best or Steve's the best. Go with the one you resonate with, that you have that relationship, that you feel comfortable building that over time. Because as I'm sure you'll agree, like in this business, it's about relationships. And I have clients I've worked with dozens of times over 20 plus years. That's what it's about. So as we wrap up here, everyone, I want to thank you for taking the time, and I want to give out Steve's information, and we'll put all his contact in the show notes. But as far as reaching Steve, whitesandrealestatesolution.com is going to be his direct website. You can read all about Steve Gordon, what he's doing in real estate and construction, and all the stuff we're talking about in negotiation. On Instagram and Facebook, you can follow Steve at Steve Gordon Realtor. Again, at Steve Gordon Realtor, just the way it sounds. And Steve, I appreciate you taking your time out, man. I really do.
Thank you so much. Real quick one before we get cut off. We are building a team. I'm looking for some really qualified real estate agents in different states throughout the country. If you're looking for something different, you want to partner with somebody who can help you grow.
Highly recommend Steve and his team. I know he's been around and he's vetted where he is for sure. So real estate pros looking for a home or just to talk, reach out to Steve directly. Again, thank you everyone for taking your time out of the day.
Thanks for listening. If you have questions about the information we've covered or would like to discuss mortgage financing for your situation, you can reach Robert Weinberg by visiting www.robgw.com.